these these two, they weren't any relative either, but maybe a distant relative of Maggie's. But they were killed in a tractor accident over by that schoolhouse east of our place.
What happened?
They tipped the tractor. I suppose they were pretty young yet and probably didn't take care of how they were driving or what. They tipped the tractor.
The headstones are just so pretty. Huge out here.
Yeah, there's some real old headstones over here. That one is 1909.
Yes.
That's 1909.
This is amazing.
Yeah. Guess I don't even see. Oh yeah, 19. No, don't see any date on there except that he was 47 years and 9 months and 28 days. Yeah. Yeah. 1852 born, 1904.
Are some really old ones.
This, I guess they pronounce it Miller, regardless how it's spelled. They're all relatives of Maggie's, but no close relatives. But
That's like Lorraine Kleingartner. Her maiden name, Lorraine Kleingartner. Her maiden name is spelled like that. It's pronounced Miller.
yes, and Maggie's dad spelled his Miller, and even brothers spelled it different.
Really?
Yeah.
Sounds like my grandfather. My grandfather is Charbonneau, and he didn't spell it like CH. He spelled it SH.
Oh.
And so we've got three or four different spellings within our family of how my maiden name is spelled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's about all I...
Okay, well we could head to the next place then.
I'm kind of thinking this is probably Maggie's great-grandparents.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So did her great-grandparents come here from Russia then as well? Like, did they come?
Yes.
Okay. Did her grandparents Did they come from
They
Russia?
came
then?
from Russia
Okay.
too, yeah.
So they came over all together, or?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes. And that is Maggie's uncle too.
Oh.
He...
Where's that picture? He died fairly young too. Really young. Oh.
He was killed accidentally with a shotgun.
Oh. How'd that happen?
I'm not sure. From the story I hear, he was handling the shotgun himself, and
It went off somehow.
yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. Huh. That's really sad. ringing the doorbell thing.
You can actually see our place from that
Oh, right over there.
roof there, the Quonset
Okay.
roof. Trees there.
So that large building in the back, towards the back, where all the trees are you guys taking that down that doesn't have a roof on, or building it up, or?
In 1997, you know, we had really a rough winter, really a lot of snow, and the roof broke down from the load of the snow.
Oh my goodness.
And I guess we never had any use for the building anymore, and it's still sitting there. We cleaned up took the roof down completely. Well, it was down completely, but we tore it apart what was left of it, and the building is still sitting there now.
Okay.
So I suppose when you were growing up, how long would a building typically last? I mean, did they last?
Pretty long,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, did you guys have to replace the roofs often, or?
Well, the shingles on the roof, I guess these asphalt shingles now, they consider them 20-year life. But the cedar shingles that they used to use, they lasted many years. Like our big barn there, we just reshingled that 2 years ago. That still had the cedar shingles on from, I think, when it was built. And I don't know what year that might have been built. I'd say that was probably close to 100 years ago. 80, 90 years, I'd say.
So what year did you and Maggie get married in?
1953.
1953?
In December of 1953.
I remember that at Winter Wedding. I do remember that one.
Yeah.
Did it snow?
It snowed. It was kind of a snowstorm that night when we got through with the wedding.
I bet this area is quite pretty with it covered with snow.
Yeah.
All white,
Yeah.
the hills.
But it was really a mild winter that winter. After that, when we moved up here, shortly after, probably a week that we stayed at Maggie's parents.
Oh.
And then we moved up here, and we did a lot of tearing down buildings and buildings that were in bad shape, and working on the fences. We're able to work outside all winter.
So how soon after you and Maggie got married did you guys start to have kids?
Pardon?
How soon after you and Maggie got married did you start to have kids?
Oh, well, we got married in 53, and our first child was born in 55.
Okay. What was that like, being a father for the first time?
I don't know, I guess it kind of came natural. Yeah, but our children, I think we talked about that last time already. They're about 10 years
Apart,
in between. Yeah.
Because I'm 10 years older than my brother.
Yeah. This is part of our farm here too.
Oh. What are those old buildings?
We bought that back in 1963, and had a little problems after that with the neighbor over here. He wanted to buy it too.
Oh.
In fact, he was kind of dealing for it, and he was trying to chew the guy down on the price, what the guy wanted for price, and then we asked him whether we could buy it, the owner that owned it. He said, why not? So we made a deal with him and bought it, and that neighbor that was living over there, it's only about the last 2 years that he's talked to
Gotten
us.
over it?
Yeah, finally got over it.
So what are the buildings down there? What were they? Was somebody lived there before that, or?
Yes, there was a family living there before we bought it.
So do you know
And
when?
then-
Do you know when? Who homesteaded on your property before you guys bought it?
Yeah, it was a Ginger that we bought it from, but I think his parents are the ones that actually homesteaded it. But not his parents either. It was his wife's parents that homesteaded it when we. And the only buildings that are left here that were here when we bought the place is that big barn and this granary right here.
Right here?
Yeah. And that chicken coop east of over from the barn. That's about all the buildings that are left. Oh yeah, there's one more behind there that is pretty shabby.
You still use the big barn?
For the cats.
For the cats.
I've got an old tractor and a plow that I keep in there. In fact, 2 tractors I've got in there.
So you moved onto this farm a week after you got married?
We moved on here, yeah.
Oh.
My in-laws, they bought the place. And then when we were able to buy it, we bought it from them.
Oh.
Yeah. None of those trees were back there when we bought it.
You planted those?
We planted them in 1959.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
There were a few more trees closer by the house there, but that's all.
Okay.
So originally there was a wall over here with a door here, and then there was a wall here, and this was the toilets over here,
Okay.
and for the clothes here,
Okay.
for the girls over here, and the same way over here for the boys.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the main.
Oh my goodness. This is amazing. Flash, no flash.
The bookcase.
Oh my goodness. That's just amazing.
I think that blackboard on that wall is still up. wish we could read some of the writing on there. I know there's some writing on there.
1915 something.
So this is pretty typical of what a schoolhouse would look like, though.
Yes.
How many students would typically be in a schoolhouse like this?
How many?
Yeah.
From what where I went to school, and at the time the building looked bigger, but I don't think it probably was much bigger than this. But we usually had around 24 pupils.
Okay. And so typically the teacher would be up here, and then the students' desks would be all back
Yes, yeah.
here. Okay.
And they had a heater there,
Was this a
cold heater.
Was this a typical?
And those are the
desk?
typical desks, yeah. I think this is probably a single desk,
You had some
Lo-
singles and some doubles.
like this one is a double.
Okay.
You can probably see it better from here. We just use it for storage, I guess. I wish I could. I guess it's Jacob Meyer went to this school in 1915.
That's amazing.
And of course, when I went to school, there were no electric lights like now.
Yeah.
They've got electric lights, and
Before you'd use like candles or something to light it if it
Yeah.
was dark outside.
yeah. And I remember our school. Some years, the teacher would stay at the school, live at the school.
Really?
The one teacher, I think they had 3 children, and they had a curtain across the end of it, and that was their living quarters.
That's just amazing.
So where would the fireplace be? Like right here?
Yeah, about right where this old stove is sitting here. That's about where the fireplace was at.
So that's the chimney
Yeah.
stack, right?
Yeah.
So did you guys fight over who get to sit by the fireplace in the winter?
Well, didn't have much choice, I guess.
You have assigned seats then?
Right.
Where did
And
if this was like your schoolhouse, when you went to school, where would you have sat?
I think I was usually probably around here,
About the
probably a little
middle?
further. You know.
Did they have it divided by classes or just alphabetical or?
Not really either way, because I know the guy that I was sitting with, he actually, I think he was in the 4th grade when I probably was in the 3rd grade.
Okay.
And but he was a lot older than I was. He just never made it any further than, and wasn't able to do the 4th grade work very well either. But I don't know how they decided where they put him. But the teacher would call you to class, and then you'd come up to the front row. The front row had the seat. Didn't have on this seat there was a bench on the front seat too, and that's where where you'd go for a class.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's when she'd do each class individually, and then you'd sit in your desk while you did your work and stuff.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But to have 8 grades and then probably 6 classes a day,
Yeah, the teachers did amazing work back
that
then.
is for sure. That is for sure.
I don't think today a teacher could comprehend having 8 grades in one classroom.
And I think they got around $65 a month.
And didn't some of that have to go usually to like their room and board too? And yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So. Huh. Well, thank you for showing us this. This is great.
Mrs. Deckard was my last teacher.
Was she a good teacher?
She was. But I remember we had one teacher. He was, I think he drove daily from Fredonia. I know he drove from someplace daily. He had a Model A car. And one day the bigger boys lifted up the back end of the car and put blocks under it.
Oh my goodness! So he couldn't go anywhere when he.
So did you put the new roof on that?
We did, yeah.
Okay.
So you guys planning to just keep it and keep it around and?
We plan to, yeah. We, like I say, we'll go down this road towards the south, yeah. Like I say, we should do more work on it, clean it out. And
Well, that's a historical treasure right there.
well, there's a lot of stuff in there that we're not going to use anymore and isn't going to evaluate and value either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the books and the desks. We certainly want to keep them.
Oh yeah.
You know.
That goes real well with this, with the history of it.
Yeah.
And you said Maggie's mother went there?
Yes.
So was this like wetland here when you were growing up?
Yes.
Was this always here?
There used to be a farm here too, before we moved here.
Now just the windmill stands.
Yeah. Yeah.
They always seem to be the last thing to go, the windmills.
Oh yes.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man. They're built pretty strong, I guess.
They are.
Because, I mean, you see them all over the landscape. You can just see windmills.
Yeah, and you can be pretty sure that at one time there was a farmstead there.
Yeah.
Like here, used to be a farmstead. And where those trees are, there used to be a farmstead. And these 2 farmsteads were here yet when we moved in this area.
So would you say that when you first moved to where you guys live now, did you say that there was a lot of little farms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And now it's a few big farms.
Right.
Okay.
I can't remember the figures no more, but Maggie and I figured out one day how many farms there were along this road here down to Highway 34. There were quite a few farms, and now nobody lives down this way anymore.
Really?
And even a lot of farmsteads had disappeared already when we moved in here.
So it was starting with 453?
Yes.
So when you said your in-laws bought the place that you live on, did they buy it for you and then for you to eventually buy it from them?
Yes.
That's why they...
Yeah, that was the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did they live in relation to you?
Where did they live? That road that we had taken up to the church.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about 4 miles down, and then about probably 4 miles towards the right
Okay.
where they lived.
So when they bought your place, how much land did they buy for you guys?
It was 640 acres.
Good chunk.
That hill over there that you can see, that, and I don't know why, but they call that the Buffalo Hill.
Oh.
It's, I guess, the highest point for around the area anyhow, Buffalo Hill.
You ever been on top of it?
One time we went over there one Sunday afternoon. Our second oldest son was at home, and we just decided we'd go over there. It's no way that you can go just directly over there. You have to go around some sloughs and waters.
So that's one of the landmarks if you're lost in the countryside. You could
Down by Buffalo Hill.
Okay, that's Buffalo Hill.
I don't see the buffalo either, though.
Yeah, I don't know. This place, some hunters bought it now, and they've done some work to put a little cottage out here. And there's an old schoolhouse that's being used for a garage too.
Oh.
Over there. This was more Finnish country in here.
Okay.
That was a Finnish family that lived there, and a Finnish family lived here.
So now, did the Finnish, they homesteaded almost the same time as the Germans?
I think so. As much as I know, anyhow, they did. And I don't know why, but the Germans always kind of downgraded the Finnish. And I don't know, maybe the Finnish downgraded the Germans. I'm not sure, but that was like a guy that grew up on this farm. He got married to a German gal, and that was one of the first mixed marriages that was, and there was a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, I know. Emo was saying that when he married Lillian, they always joked about it because she was Finnish and he was German Russian.
Mm-hmm.
So did you hunt when you were a kid?
Pardon?
Did you hunt when you were a kid?
Not really. We'd trap gophers. We got a penny for each gopher that we caught.
So that'd be kind of a summer employment there.
Yes.
You and your brothers did that?
And sisters too,
And sisters.
yeah. Yeah.
And then you'd sell the tails?
Right.
Yeah.
When you would get pennies for the gophers and stuff, what did you use your money for?
Oh, little trinkets or something that we yearned for. That was a Finnish farm here, and then a little further over there was another Finnish farm. A little ways back from this last farm that we passed, there's no sign there of any buildings or trees or anything there. Used to be an old Finnish bachelor living there, and he had a Studebaker car, with the steering wheel on the right-hand side. I guess he'd give the Finnish people rides with that on Sunday afternoons. His name was Killonen, but they always called him Kill 'em Quick.
So when you were growing up, pretty much everybody farmed. Well, out here, everybody farmed. But it wasn't farming for money. It was more farming for living.
For a living, yes. Yeah, and
Even when you got married and moved to the farm, was it more farming to survive? Or did you guys start selling?
it was more selling than already,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. And I guess when I grew up, we had animals and mostly just about any kind of animals. We had horses, we had cattle, and we had sheep and pigs, chickens and turkeys and ducks and geese. It was just all a mixture. Here you make a left turn when we get to the highway.
And so what kind of crops did your parents farm?
Mostly wheat and a little barley and oats and spells. Like the oats and barley, that was mainly raised for feed. Wheat, sold a little wheat, and at Cullum there was a flour mill. Take a load of wheat down and bring back flour, exchange it for flour.
So were all the cattle that you had growing up, were they all just straight milk cows? Or did you have meat cows too?
I guess they were more a meat cow than a dairy cow. They, yeah. Oh, here we turn right.
So you meant the house that you and when your in-laws bought it for you, it had about 640 acres, you said? How many acres do you have now?
2,200
Increased
acres.
quite a bit.
Yeah, that we added to it.
Almost 4 times the size.
Yeah.
So what do you do with your land now?
We've got it leased out. There's 2 young guys that do the farm cropland, and then the pasture we've got leased out to Maggie's nephew, the one that lives, over there. And some of it, some of our land is in the CRP program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when was it when you first got when you got your first TV?
First what?
TV.
Probably in the later 50s. I don't know, around probably 57, 56 or 57.
So you had already been married
Yes.
by the time you
Yeah.
so you came.
Yeah.
But when you moved onto that property, you had always had electricity there
Yes. Yeah.
and running
It-
water.
No.
Not running water.
No. Electricity, my home place, I think it came in 1951. Rural electricity. And Maggie and I put in the running water, I think in probably 1965.
So how did How did getting a TV change your life?
Really, not too much. I don't know. We never really spend a lot of time on with the TV.
Do you remember what the first programs that you really enjoyed were?
I can picture the guys Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke?
Gunsmoke, yeah.
Okay.
And there was one guy that hosted Amateur, and I just can't think of his name now. He always hosted amateur people, and a lot of them did go big then after they were on his show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Lawrence Welk on TV?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So did it make it easier to get news on like storms, or did you guys still just use the radio for that?
Mostly the radio, yes. I think there was another TV show that Half Gun Will Travel.
Okay.
That was, I guess, Western were my favorite.
So you had to went to Westerns when you were a kid,
Yeah.
like at the movie theater.
Yeah.
What was the first one you went to? Do you remember it?
No, I don't.
How about your favorite Western movie?
Pardon?
Your favorite Western movie?
I think Gunsmoke was my favorite, yeah. On the radio, we often listened to the Lone Ranger.
Okay.
You know, and Mr. District Attorney, that always was.
One more technology question. When you guys first get a phone?
My parents had a telephone as far back as I can remember. So I really don't know when they got it.
What did your family use the telephone for?
I think mostly for letting the neighbors know of some deals. So if there was something that you wanted to do with the neighbors, but it was a farm-owned line that we had, and it was one of those wall phones that you crank. Yeah.
Not something that you just call to chit-chat for a while with somebody on the phone with.
Yeah. I remember yes, it would go this way. When I stayed at my grandparents', my mother would call her mother quite often, you know.
Make sure that you're being a good little boy.
I suppose. And I always was.
So, did you have any relatives that still lived over in Germany or over in Russia when you were growing up?
Well, I guess there's still some living over there now.
Okay.
In fact, a cousin of mine, he lives down in Texas. He's been doing quite a bit of research on relatives, and when we were, I guess must be about 4 years ago, or maybe 6 years ago. This is the cemetery right up front here. You can turn off at this approach here. We went to a reunion in Bismarck. It was a Gumpty reunion. My grandpa's first two wives were Gumpties.
Okay.
And we went to that funeral, and and funeral, reunion. That's fine. And then not too long after that, this cousin of mine in Texas got a call from a guy in Germany. And he said that he was, according to what he's found out, he was a close relative.
Oh my goodness.
And then my cousin had him call me too. And then the guy said, I've got a picture of you. I said, you've got a picture of me? Yes. He says, I've got a picture of you and your wife, Maggie. And I said, well, how did you get a hold of that? And I guess a friend of his, they were at the Gumpke reunion. And they were taking pictures and took them back there.
Oh my goodness, small world.
Yeah. And now he sent us some genealogy, and I guess his grandpa and my great-great-grandpa were brothers, according to what he researched. And then he was looking for an uncle of his that came to the United States, and well, he had said in 1954. But it turned out that it was probably in 1948, and he was searching for his uncle. And well, finally he did find two of his uncle's sons. His uncle, we knew, wasn't living anymore, because according to his birth date, he'd have been over 100 years old.
Probably not around.
But two of his sons, one lives down in Ohio and one in Texas, and we're going to have a Presler reunion next summer.
Okay.
And they want to come and see us.
Oh, fun.
But they also spell their name different than what we do.
Oh.
They spell it B, R-E-S-S-L-E-R.
B.
Yeah, instead of P.
And is it pronounced Presler still too, or?
Well, I guess Presler.
Presler?
But if you pronounce Presler in German, it would sound like a B anyhow.
Yeah.
This is where my parents are buried.
And how did your dad pass away? What did your dad pass away from?
Heart attack, heart failure anyhow.
And your mom?
I'm not sure what her, mostly old age, I think. And this is my youngest brother that was killed by a horse. I think I had mentioned about that.
How did that happen again?
He was, a horse was in the yard with a little colt, and I think he got too close to that horse, and she probably was trying to get him away, and she gave him a kick.
How old was he when that happened?
Pardon?
How old was he when that happened?
He was born in March, I think.
Yeah, that's what it says there, March.
And then the following year in June, I think he...
41, so he was born in 1940, died in 1941.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was his name? Was it
Wallace? Yeah.
Okay.
And then I've got another sister buried up towards that end.
Okay, yeah. So how old
I've
were
one a sister that I never got to know, that she was born and died before I.
So how old were you when Wallace passed away?
41. I must have been about 12 12 years old. The church was right here next to the cemetery.
Is it Clara Presler?
Yes, yes.
She died when she was 4?
She died flu epidemic.
That's right. That must have been hard for your parents. Was she the oldest child?
Pardon?
Was she the oldest child?
I think the oldest one probably was still born.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Wait, was she the
and
second
then-
oldest?
No, there was another. I've got a sister that was born in 1912.
Okay.
That is still living.
That's still living. Oh my goodness.
In fact, her and Maggie's mother shared
That's right.
Care
You were
center.
telling me about that. That's right. So out of 18 of your brothers and sisters, how many are still alive today?
I think I've got 11 sisters alive yet, and 3 or 2 brothers.
2 brothers. So there's 14 of you around.
Yeah. I'd have to start counting before I say for sure.
Are you close to all of them, or is it hard to stay in touch with such a large family?
Well, yeah, it's really not that close to all of them, no.
Okay. Imagine with that many kids, it's hard to keep in touch. And
Well, and a lot of them weren't, or some of them, I shouldn't say a lot of, some of them were away from home already, were married by the time I was
yeah.
born.
So, with that many kids, how many nieces and nephews are there in your family?
Sure. That's a big question. I'm not sure. I'd have to have paper and pencil.
So your family reunions have to be quite large.
Yes, the Presler reunion that we're having is all the offsprings of my grandpa.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This would be a pretty.
But,
where are you going to have something like that at?
We aren't going to have that many. I think there's usually probably around 150, between 150 and 200.
Where are you going to have that?
Pardon?
Where's that going to be at?
In Gackle at the Legion Hall.
Okay. So was that common in a lot of small towns, that the church and the schools were relatively close to each other?
I think it was fairly common, like that school that cemetery that we went to. That school was right next to the church there, and St. James, the schoolhouse was not too far towards the west.
It's the west side of it.
Yeah, from where the church was, across the road though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, like this is across the road too, so.
So who cares for these cemeteries now? Who does the upkeep for them?
I think there's a cemetery board in town,
Okay.
and I think they see to it. Usually the church, like our church, usually makes sure that there's somebody that takes care of that. We call it the Neudorf Cemetery. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the same goes for this, the Congregational Church in town. Get somebody to take care of it. Yeah, the schoolhouse was, I think, between those bales and this post. And that's my home place, yeah, where my brother lives now.
Oh, so your brother lives on your home place?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh my goodness, that's pretty nice.
The house was on this side of the house that's there now.
So this old barn, was this there when you were growing up?
That was a good barn when I grew up, yeah.
Oh,
But
I'll take a picture of it.
it looks like they're tearing it down.
So same barn.
Yes,
The house was in front of this house.
yes.
What about the rest
This,
of the buildings?
none of these other buildings, well,
Maybe that little one?
no, I guess there was a chicken coop in that area, but I guess that he evidently tore that down and moved some other buildings. And
What about this little building right here?
that was here, yes.
What was that used for?
That there's a well over here, a spring,
Okay.
and we piped the water over here and put a building up over it where we could get the water out. And then from here we piped it up to the house then too. So we had running water in the house.
So the house that's behind the house? Right there? What is that?
That's the old schoolhouse. Yeah, that,
That's the old schoolhouse that you went to?
yes.
Oh my goodness.
But when we piped this water over here, we dug the trench all by hand.
Oh my goodness.
And to get through the road here, they called it a sand point. Some of the wells around here that they could put a sand point on a pipe and drive it down into the ground till they hit a water vein, and that was the well then. So we used one of those sand points on a piece of pipe to drive the pipes through the road.
How old were you when you did that?
I suppose 15, 16.
Goodness. That was a lot of work.
It was. We've worked on that just about all summer.
So were these buildings not there then? as well?
No, these buildings weren't here either.
So how much land did you have when you were growing up?
Not that much. I think it must have been about 420 acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does your brother do now? I mean, what type of farmer is he?
He's retired.
Retired.
Yeah.
How much younger is Walter than you?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
So were you really close with Walter growing up?
Yeah, I was closer to Walter than to my twin sister.
Okay.
Did a lot of things together.
So you're still close to Walter today?
Fairly, yeah. I think closer than any other in the family.
Because he's so close to you. And
Yeah.
So was this wetland here when you were growing up?
Yeah, that was pasture land on both sides of the road here. That green land on the south side of the lake here, that was cropland.
But there wasn't all this water?
Not as much as there is
Yeah.
now, but there always was. And I remember days or years when it had dried up completely.
oh, jeez.
Yeah. And that was part of my dad's land there too. And this land on the north side, he always had rented that
Oh,
from the
this is real
neighbor.
pretty up here.
So how many head of cattle did you have typical year when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, about 35.
So when did your brother take over the farm?
I guess in, must have been in 51, yeah. I had been working for my brother, my older brother,
Okay.
and then my dad quit on the farm, and I moved on this farm.
Okay.
I was still single, and I farmed 1 year, and then I was drafted, and then my other brother took over.
Okay. So were you the only one in your family drafted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember moving this barn here into the place here.
You moved this barn onto this?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
How was that?
There was a farm sold out down southeast of here, and the man that bought the place, he was mostly interested in the land, so he moved the house off on his farm. He needed a house, I guess, on his farm, and my dad bought the barn from him.
So how do you move a barn like that?
Oh, they've got big beams that they put on, probably, I don't remember, I think it was probably 4 trailers or wagons, and get those beams under the barn, and then raise them up and put the wagons under there, and then pull it with, we tried to pull it with 2 tractors, and then we got stuck in a low place. It was a soft place, and we got stuck with it.
Oh my goodness.
And you can keep going straight on this road. And then we got the county commissioner, talked to the county commissioner about, they had a bulldozer, whether we can rent that bulldozer, and put that on there and took it right out. Moved it the rest of the way with that.
Oh my goodness. How old were you guys when you moved that barn?
I think I must have been about 15, 16 years old.
How far did you have to move it?
Maybe 4 miles across the country. We didn't follow the road. It just went cross country.
Imagine that would take a lot of time and a lot of work.
It took a lot of work, yeah, that's for sure. I remember how hard we worked until that was all done.
Oh.
And I guess that's one thing my dad always made sure we had work to do.
Never a shortage of work?
No.
So, is Walter, have you talked to him about being interviewed, or he's not?
I haven't talked to him about it.
Because he's,
But-
is he young? He's younger than you, right?
He's younger than I am,
Cheers.
yeah. But if you want to call him, that's fine.
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Yeah, I'll add him to the list. If you think he'd be fine with it, I mean, I'll give him a call. Because you know what? It doesn't hurt to give him a call. What can he say?
Hey.
No, well.
He remembers a lot of things that I don't remember. I know that.
It's nice to
But,
interview.
yeah.
Ideally, with brothers and sisters and dealing with siblings, it's nice to interview, like have your interview and then have an interview with, say, like Walter, and then eventually bring you and Walter together and do an interview with the 2 of you
I
on
see.
some of your childhood memories together to build off of, and then it makes a gives a different dynamic to your guys'
sure.
stories.
Yeah, yeah.
So, doing siblings would be great.
Yeah. He does have a onset of Parkinson's,
Okay.
but it really hasn't affected him too much yet.
Still in the real early stages.
Yeah. This is one of the Finnish churches that they still have services there here in the summertime sometime, I think, but whether they have regular services, I'm not sure.
Was it
Here-
here? Was it here in the same spot when you were growing up?
Yes. Here you can make a left turn. Yeah, they used to have big conferences in the summertime for a week or two that they'd come from all over the nation.
Now, was the town of Gackle originated just down there, right?
No.
Oh, it's just up here?
Up here, yeah.
Okay.
And this is where you went over to the cemetery
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Alma?
Yeah.
Oh, did you want to go over there to get a shot of his grandparents?
Do they live?
They're
there's
buried
cemetery.
there, yeah.
Live.
Yeah,
They live there now, yeah.
Well, technically, they do.
Keep us laughing, right?
Yeah.
Laughing keeps you young.
That's right.
Those laughs are what keep a guy going.
So you didn't.
So,
You grew up pretty close to Shot. Elma's place.
yes, her folks and my folks visited each other's.
Did you know Elma real well then growing up?
Fairly well, yeah.
Did you guys
No.
hang out a lot, or not a lot, but socialize with the same group?
Well, there wasn't anybody in the family, her family, my age, so I didn't. But my folks associated with them, and like Willie, that's got that garage on the north end of town. He's a brother of Alma's,
Okay.
and my youngest brother was his age, so I guess they were together quite often. But this place here, Yankees were living here, and we'd walk over here from our place Sunday afternoons
Come over here for.
to have fun.
Okay.
But you guys did not go to the same school, did you?
No, there was a school.
Yeah.
That was just right down there. a little
Right,
bit.
yeah.
Okay.
In fact, that was a different school district than what our. Each school district had 4 schools.
So where was the St. James Lutheran Church at?
And just a little bit north of the cemetery here.
Okay, so in
Yeah.
the same little area over here.
Right, yes. And it was a very small church.
So your grandparents then were Lutheran.
Yes. But I think the reason my parents joined the Congregational Church was because it was so close to where they lived.
Had to travel very far, made it commute easier in the winter.
Yes. I sure got this mowed down nice.
Yes, we do. Just recently came out.
That's really quite the way they've got that marble on the
On the
graves.
yeah. Pretty penny.
I think it's probably further down.
Okay. Oh, Presler. Any relation?
I think it's probably a cousin of mine. Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's my oldest sister. Maybe that my parents, I don't know, I'm guessing at this, that they were members at the church.
Okay, so they hadn't switched over to the.
Now we'll have to find my grandparents' stones. I was thinking it was down at that end, but alright. Okay. There it is.
This is it? How did your grandfather die?
I'm not sure anymore either. Probably heart failure too. But I think he had Alzheimer's to begin with. And Grandma, I don't remember either what her death was. She died the same year that our oldest son was born.
Did she get to see
I think she did. I'm not even sure. I don't remember just what month she died. But his son's son, and the only son that they got, he died, or he was born the day my mother died.
Really? So your grandmother was a year older than your grandfather?
Yeah. I guess I never paid any attention to that.
How were you real close to them when you were growing up?
Kinda. I spent quite a bit of time with them in the summertime. At least I thought it was a lot of time in those days. I remember so well in the evening, in the summertime, in a nice quiet evening, they'd sit on the east side of the house. They had some benches there that they were sitting in. Mosquitoes would be so bad, she'd tell Grandpa, light up your pipe to make some smoke for the mosquitoes.
So they would go away?
Yeah.
So when you think back to them, what's the best memory you have of them?
Well, I don't know. I know she always, you could buy a bag about that big, not that tall, candy for a nickel. And when we'd go to town, she made sure that candy.
So she was a grandma through and through.
Yes. And then Grandpa never did something like that. She always said, he's too tight or something like that. That's what she made a guy feel anyhow, that he was too tight for something like that. My grandma was a real small lady.
she close to your mom?
I think so. I think that was, well, the only child she had from her first marriage. And I think she was pretty close to.
Special bond between her and.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know how your grandma's first husband passed away?
No, I really don't know anything about him. And I think my mother was probably pretty young yet when he died.
So what was your mother's maiden name?
Dumdy.
And did her father die back in Russia, or did he die over here?
I think he probably died in Russia.
In Russia.
I think so, because I think my grandma was probably married to my grandpa when they came over here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had already joined the two families.
Yes.
Okay.
Now you can make a right turn here. And when they came to Ellis Island, I guess my grandma's sister was with the group too. Now I don't know whether she had been married, or I don't know any details about her either. But when they came to Ellis Island, she didn't pass her physical, so they didn't let her in. And
She had to go back?
she went down to Argentina,
Uh-huh.
South America, and my mother and her, and I suppose my mother's mother too, communicated. I remember my mother writing letters to her down in Argentina, and we've got some pictures too.
Did she write letters back to your mother?
Yes. I remember they were always in German, and I remember my mother reading them out loud.
So did your grandma and grandpa have a good marriage?
I think so.
Yeah.
They had their squalls, but not too often when the kids were around.
Right, yeah.
They never.
How do you know how they met?
No, I
You don't know?
No. Evidently probably from the same village. I guess over there they lived in villages, and probably in the same village.
And how many kids did your grandpa have when he married your grandma? He was married twice before.
Yeah. I think there were six children from the first two marriages.
It's a ready-made family, and then to have more kids.
Yeah, and that's my grandpa's homestead. I don't remember them living here.
Yeah.
They had moved to where we'll go by that place too.
Okay.
But this is where he homesteaded.
When they
And
originally
then-
came? When
Pardon?
they first came here?
Yes. And when they moved, my uncle moved in here.
Oh, okay.
So I was familiar with this place, although it looked altogether different.
Yeah. Really?
Now there's the son, or the father, and the son lives over here.
Okay.
I think we just met that guy in town.
Oh,
What guy?
Does he have a beard?
I don't think he's got a beard, no.
Is he
You can turn around whenever it works for you.
older? Like,
He's my age,
okay.
but he hasn't got a beard, no. Guess I just was together with him yesterday. And
Oh,
That'd be a quick beard to grow.
yeah.
Definitely not him. Does he drive that truck?
Probably his son, but I don't know whether his son would have a beard either.
No, it couldn't be his son.
You saw somebody in that truck?
Yeah, the old guy that was sitting at the table with the lady who ran the cafe. I know he got into that truck and drove it. Or a truck that looked exactly
We
like
went to the
that.
cafe today for lunch.
Oh.
For dinner. So went and had some food in the cafe. Figured we've been here so many times and we hadn't been to the cafe yet. Had to go see it.
Sure. It's a good idea. We had a funeral yesterday.
Oh.
Who passed away?
My brother-in-law, he was married to my youngest sister, and he died on last Saturday. Yeah, we had a military funeral for him, and I guess I was involved with that, with the military.
What did he die from?
I guess probably old age. I'm not sure what took his life now. I never asked. He was in the nursing home in Jamestown. He was 89 years old.
So, up there. How's your
And he
sister doing?
Pardon?
How's your sister doing?
She passed away
Oh.
9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. She was my youngest sister. So there was quite a age spread.
Yeah. And what'd she pass away from?
She had cancer.
Cancer.
Yeah, I think she struggled about 5 years with cancer.
That's finding more and more how many people cancer really does touch.
Oh, that's for sure. And nowadays it seems like so many of them have a cancer that takes their life fast, which is probably better than
It's better than
suffering.
slow, I guess. Yeah. 'Cause there's some that go through so much agony with it.
Yeah.
So how long did your grandparents live on that, when they homesteaded there, how long did they live there for?
I really don't know how long they lived here.
Okay.
Yeah. They had moved off of there before my time out.
Okay.
You have brothers and sisters that are in other states in North Dakota, don't you?
Yes, I've got 2 sisters.
California, don't you have one in California?
No,
Or
one in Oregon and one
Oregon, that's right.
and one in Washington.
I knew there was a couple out west. I'm like thinking, I remember he said that. It's being from Washington, those ones stick out in my head.
Yeah.
But all the boys are in North
Boys
Dakota?
are living.
So,
The boys that are alive are living in the Gackle area. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
so out of all the children that your parents had, how many of them stayed in the farming life, the farming career?
Well, some of them started, but they didn't finish.
They didn't finish?
No. But the boys, 3 of us boys. Well, my older brother didn't start farming. He was a mechanic in town when he got married, yes. But in 1947, I think it was in 47, when he moved on the farm too, and stayed there for the rest of his life. And my twin sister, they farmed as long as he was living.
Okay.
And when he died, then she moved to town.
Okay.
And then
so
I
does
had,
she live in town like Gackle, or
yeah,
she lives in Gackle now?
she lives in Gackle, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How about her for an interview?
You can try it.
We'll go through all the Presler family here.
And then my oldest sister, they farmed for a while, but well, it was just about till their retirement. But they seemed to move around. They started farming, and then they quit farming, and he worked on what they called the WPA.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with them, and then they finally moved back on the farm again.
Okay.
I think they were on 2 different farms after that. And then another sister of mine that they started out farming and couldn't make it on the farm, so they moved to Jamestown, and her husband committed suicide later. And another sister of mine, they farmed till he was just about at retirement age too. And then he bought into implement dealer,
Okay.
a John Deere dealership, and didn't make it there. So. And then one of the other twins, my sister, they farmed. I think they stayed on the farm till, well, she passed away before he passed away, but they lived on the farm all their life.
So it sounds like a good number of your siblings became farmers, or
Quite a few, yeah.
So what does your brother do? Your brother Walter do with all his land now that he's retired? Is he leasing it out as well, or?
He's rented it out too, yeah.
Your sister,
I think he's got some in the CRP too.
Okay.
your sisters that are on the West Coast, when they move there?
The one of them, the one that lives at Seattle, they moved out there in 1952, and the one that lives in Oregon must have been about in probably 1954.
So
This is where
This is where Gackle used to
Gackle
be,
used
yeah.
to be,
And then a guy stayed here. He had a filling station here and a little store, grocery store. And then just a little bit south, a couple of blocks, I suppose, there was a blacksmith shop.
are you the one that was talking about having a bologna sandwich at the filling station?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was him.
Yeah.
yeah, we were. Who were we talking? Oh, Elmo was
Elmo
talking
was talking
about
the filling station as well.
because the grocery store was owned by a Finishman,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
yeah,
she was talking about him.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
And he wasn't very clean, a very clean guy.
She said
Dirty
she
hands.
said the same thing about him. It's like he was not very clean. He was nice, but he wasn't clean.
And his English wasn't all that good either. I remember, I was a couple of winters that I worked at a garage in Gackle too before I went into the service. And this guy would stop in there quite often at the garage there. And he couldn't find his gloves. He looked around and looked around. Finally he says, "What kind of somebody took my loves?" He thought somebody took his gloves. Walter's daughter lives here, one of the girls.
Okay.
That's Walter's pickup.
Speaking of.
Yeah.
So your grandparents lived closer to Gackle after they left that?
My grandparents, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little ways up here. This is some of our property here. That lake, well, they're all connected, this one, and then there's another part of it behind the hill there. And all of a sudden we found out there's some perch in there.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Someone tossed them in.
Did some pretty good, yeah, somebody must have tossed them in. And there was really good fishing there for one winter, but not anymore.
Oh, no?
You know, I tried it last winter again, and I just never got anything.
So that's your property right now? You own that property over there?
Yeah.
Is that in CRP?
No, but I've got it leased out to the Game and Fish.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I've got a 3-year contract on it for the Game and Fish.
For a WPA or
Yeah.
a wildlife management area?
Yeah.
Okay.
They let anybody in there
And hunt it?
to hunt,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. That's what I was thinking.
Is it pretty good duck hunting there?
I think so, yeah. And this next place coming up here, that's where my grandparents lived when I got to know them.
And
And,
who owns it now?
Pardon?
Who owns it now?
I think it's a guy, some hunter out of state, and that is the house up there that they lived in. It was down here about where this house sits, but the guy that bought the place here, he moved it back here and bought a different house.
Can you pull off there and get a
You want me
picture of
to?
it? Yeah. I'd like to get a picture of it. That's pretty cool.
Doesn't look very livable anymore.
No, but it does show a lot of like what you know. You can see the structure of it. To
Yeah.
see how houses back then used to look and.
And it's just what's on the north end now was on the south end.
So it used to be like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they lived right on the main strip. Huh?
Yes. Yeah. Of course, the roads were quite a bit different at that time too. This is completely a straight road now, which it used to have quite a few curves in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It used to be dirt too.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did they pave this? Do you know?
I think it was probably in the later 50s, early 60s. That house in the summertime, they used bedrooms upstairs, but the walls weren't finished off upstairs. It was just the rafters you could see, but my grandma took magazines and the pages off of magazines. She
I made like a wallpaper.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
wallpapered the whole thing.
Huh. Sounds like a creative woman.
So did your grandpa build that house himself?
That I don't know either. No.
Did they live there until they passed away, or?
No. Before they passed away, they really couldn't take care of things out there no more, and then they moved into town.
Okay.
And a few years that they lived there, finally they couldn't take care of themselves, and then I'm not sure anymore. They did go to a retirement home down in Eureka, South Dakota, and stayed there for a while, and then they came back again, and I think that was when they moved from one child to the next state,
Okay.
stayed at each place for a certain length of time and then moved to another place.